My name is Madhuri and I'm a metaphysical therapist. I found out that I had an intuitive gift when I was 16, and by the way, I think everybody really does have such a gift. It just needs kind of coddling and paying attention to, bringing out. But I didn't become a professional intuitive until 1986, and in the interim I'd been through many years of meditation in Osho's communes. Since 1986 I've been a professional intuitive with a great many techniques that I use, and I've practiced in many parts of the world, and I was in the mystic ring in the Osho School of Mysticism in Pune. I've taught other people how to access their intuitive gift. And on the way I've picked up a lot more techniques, but what I wanted to do today is really just to share something about some techniques that I've discovered, not the ones that I've learned. The ones I've learned are wonderful and I carry them with me everywhere and I use them in my sessions, but I just wanted to focus on some that I stumbled across, that I discovered, that happened to me over time. And the reason I want to do that is because to me they are kind of miraculous and beautiful. So this isn't like a mercantile thing here, it's more like a gallery. I just want to share what happened to me in developing certain techniques. And on the way to doing that, I'm just going to show you a little bit of some other tools that I use, just to kind of give a background. I use a lot of human design. I use color light therapy. For example, this color is the color of rose quartz. It's unconditional love and acceptance. And right now I'm going to put it on points on my forehead that will bring love and acceptance to all the organ groups in my body. It feels really good. And it's yummy. It's like very relaxing and yummy, and I just felt like doing it. Then sometimes I use a pendulum for certain chakra balancing kind of thing. I use the chakra system. I use voice dialogue, which is a gorgeous technique. Past life work, tantra, breath, trance journeys, dance, horror work, and a ghost busting technique that I kind of partly developed and partly didn't. Got it from elsewhere. But now I'm going to talk about the stuff that happened to me. So, intuitive reading, the way I do it, I use my hands to receive information. I used to do a lot of psychic palm reading, where I would tune in to the areas in the hand, not just look at lines, but also kind of receive what the territory underneath the lines was. I don't do that so much now because a lot of the complexity of what I would discover there, I can see very beautifully on human design, and probably much better on human design, and it's much less tiring for me. But I do with every client whom I see in person rather than on Skype, because I do a lot of Skype sessions, I do hold their hands and just become receptive and receive information that way for a couple of minutes. In that same methodology of just using my hands to receive energy, I discovered that I can receive information from anything. So, for example, I was once on a camping trip and I was bored and I went out in the woods. This was in the 80s, before I knew how to do all these different things. And I just hovered my hand above the leaf mulch on the ground. And to my surprise, I could see the leaves lives, and I could see the lives of all these leaves that had fallen, and then they were lying on top of each other and they were decaying and becoming earth, and underneath them there was earth below that and below that. And so I found out that you can read anything. So I love to do tarot reading, for example, but the way I do it, I don't use a book. I threw the book away. The client chooses cards, and then I just hover my hand over the card, and the card gives me all kinds of information. And it seems that whatever is on the card, it's not exactly irrelevant, but it might be relevant for funny reasons, like there's a picture on the card that will echo something that's in the energy that needs to be seen. One of my favorite things to read is stones. I used to design jewelry, and I would do it in a way where I felt the stones, and I felt how you could combine stones with each other and it would create a whole different energy. And then once the pieces were made, and I would put them through a cleaning process where I would charge them in starlight or moonlight on a roof in Pune. Then I would sit with a client, and she would have chosen pieces she was attracted to, and I would put the pieces one by one in her hand and feel how that piece affected her energy, because first I would feel her energy without the piece, and then I would feel it with it, and then I would see how it affected her. And this was really fun, because stones are people too, and they are dramatically gorgeous, and each one is different, and then each person and each stone has a unique meeting. So that was really fun. And I like to do a kind of session where someone brings me their whole collection of stones, sacred objects, prized objects, and we go through them one by one, and we check how that object fits with her. She can tell me the story of each one, how she got it, what it means to her. And in this way, a whole reading occurs of the person as well as the things. So that's really fun too. And I call that poetry in stones. I like to teach people how to do that. Actually, I've done a whole lot of it. I've done so much of it, I'm a little bored with it now. So it's not entirely true anymore. I'm tired of doing that. Okay, something else I do love to do. I call it a poetry reading, but really what I mean is I tune in with the person's energy, and then I just allow a poem to come for her. When I look in a person's energy also, I look very deep. I'm not just looking on the surface. I kind of zero in to find out what her ground of being is, what her most radiant potential is that's deep inside, and it's always something completely unique to that person. And then I write a poem for her, and I read it out loud to her and roll it up, put a ribbon on it, and give it to her. In psychic reading, a lot of people think of the word psychic as meaning reading the future. And a lot of people have also been stung by someone supposedly reading their future and telling them things they didn't like to hear. So I want to hasten to assure you that I don't do that, because I find that abusive and violent and foolish, because a future is an unfoldment from the present. And to me, what has value is to dig in to the present, which includes the past, because it's all layered in there, but to reveal it, to open it out, brings consciousness. And that consciousness then informs what happens afterwards. And that I find beautiful. Okay, now more things that I do. There are a couple of trance journeys where I just put the person in a lightly relaxed space. They're fully conscious. Guide them into visiting 7 layers of their aura, which kind of correspond to 7 chakras. That's one thing. And from some of the kind of further out layers of the aura, you can look back at yourself and see yourself from a distance and get an interesting perspective. And then there's another kind of session I love so much that even though I didn't invent it, I wanted to talk about it because to me it feels like it's so personalized by each person who goes into it that, and I think it's a kind of classic. It's in, I got it from a New Age book. I can't even remember which one, and I've been told that it's quite a classic, but I want to include it, so it's the only one that I didn't discover. It's called The Secret Garden. You're guided into going down into your own private garden, and you describe it. And it's your own. Nobody else can go there. Nobody else can influence it. It can be any way that it appears to you. And for each person it will be completely different, unique. And each time you visit it, it might change. Or some things can stay the same, and some things change. And while you're down in there, you can meet a wise person, and you can ask questions and hear things and interact with that wise person. And all the questions of your life you can lay out. And then you come back. And I love this one so much. Sometimes when I've been ill, I've gone there and I just, I find such a beautiful place in there that's all for me. And I am really given the information that I need. And that information is not just in words, but it's felt through my whole body. And it's registering in my truth place in myself. Another kind of session I've done a lot of is dream work. And the way I do dream work is not very complicated. Each character, symbol, person in a dream is something that you have around you because it's reflecting something that you need to look at. A symbol is like a concentrated energy. You can't see what's in the energy, you can only see the picture of it. So the way that we go into it is by stepping out of ourselves and into that symbol and becoming it. And then I ask certain questions of that, that thing that has just been embodied. For example, if you dream about a cupboard with a spider coming out of it, and then your stepfather appears in the door and you stumble over a flower on the floor. So we would visit each one of those symbols, talk with it, and it will not only tell us what it's there for, but in so doing, it has relaxed and released itself. It no longer has to be tight up into this little symbol. It kind of gives itself up into the air and turns into consciousness. So when I have a dream that has some potency in it, as soon as I get up, I just do this. It takes a few minutes. I just hop around on the floor and become each one, and it tells me right away what it's for. And then I can also ask what the whole dream, to show me the message of the whole dream, and then I step into that as well. The next thing is channeling. For the longest time in my career, I didn't even like that word. I thought that it was kind of new agey and silly, and you know, you're like channeling some God knows what masters or Red Indians or something, and I wanted nothing to do with it. But for many years of my career, I was working as an empath, and it was very unhealthy for me. That means I would take in the client's dis-eases and karmic loads, and I would try to live them out for her in the room right then in the session, with all sound and fury and howling and shrieking and leaping about and plumbing the depths of and expressing, and I would try my very best to completely unwind all of it. And I did that for 18 years, and then I got very, very sick and was close unto death, and I was then dramatically and beautifully healed in India, and since then I don't do that anymore. I look in different ways. So through that process of coming out of being an empath and finding out how to look at things in a different way, how to access information in a different way, I did discover that I had the right wiring to simply be able to open a sort of little faucet. It's kind of up over the right ear and down through me, where I could access messages, information from some nearby wise beings. To do that, I go in a really relaxed space. I just give up. I kind of find a landscape in my belly that's just a kind of special one for me, that's very pure and radiant for myself, whatever it happens to be that day. And then the messages kind of come out. They sort of come out with a power from my belly. So that's something that I do. I don't like doing that on Skype because somehow the electromagnetic frequency gets in the way. The next thing is called angel healing. I'm slowing down right now to talk about it because it's so precious to me. It's so beautiful that I feel even a little hesitant to try to describe it, but I also want to describe it. So the client is lying down, and I come down into her aura gently. I'm standing above her, and I come down slowly. And finally I end up just sitting at her feet, and I place my hands on her feet, just hold them. Sometimes I put my hands over the toes, sometimes at the heels. And then I close my eyes and I go inside myself, and I ignore her. I just ignore her as if she's not there, and I'm only going in, and I rest there. And I just don't do anything. I'm just quiet, just coming down inside. And after some time, I'll start to feel like there's an overflow of connectivity between her body and my hands. It just happens that my attention will get called to her. And then I ask these nearby beings, which I call the guides, I ask them, is it okay if we do a healing now for her? And if they say yes, sometimes they say no, sometimes they say wait. If they say no, it's usually because they just want me to wait a little while. When they say yes, I can ask whatever questions that client has had. And then I just say, what wants to happen here? That's my way of opening the kind of little faucet. And then I'm doing nothing, but these beings come down and they very sensitively and lovingly and perceptively are doing things. They might shower her with rose petals, lift her up, take her somewhere she needs to go, show her some scene, do things in her body, in her aura. Things might come out of her past. But the reason that I'm saying that it's something so precious to me is because for me, what's so gorgeous is not only that I get to watch this unfolding kind of light space healing, but I am challenged to describe it in the moment that it's happening. And this is my bliss, is to see a thing and to find the words. And I know that there are places this universe offers us that are way beyond words, but I have a gift for the words, and however poor a thing that is intrinsically, it is mine. So it is ecstatic for me to do that, to just feel the fineness of something and look for the words, let the words come to me, because they do, they just come, and describe it. And this just lasts as long as it lasts, generally about 40 minutes. And then there's a natural sense of completion where the thing feels like it's been brought through something and into some light. And then I thank the guides, and that's it. And then we usually do a little aura soma. I forgot to bring some aura soma bottles. That's another one of the things that I use that I didn't discover. We put some in the aura. Okay, the next thing, I would love to teach some of these things, teach people how to do them. That hasn't been happening. I live in a remote place, and that's why all these things I'm telling you about, you may never experience them with me. A few things you might experience on Skype, but that's why I haven't taught it, but I just want to share that I would be joyful to teach these things. Another thing I invented but have never taught, and this is also really close to my heart, I would call it words of love, and it would be a tantra process which would be using words, which would call out of people their writing and their speaking about love, about the beauty of their partner, about letting imagination go wild, you know, the stories that come with slow dancing with someone, smelling them. Because also, I know a lot of times people have a hard time saying their words of love, and I think it's important to say them when we have them, if that's our medium. So, and maybe even if it isn't. So I would be joyful to teach that. Another thing I do is called a distance healing. Someone wants me to give them a healing from a distance, or they would like to have a healing done for a friend of theirs. And I do this one just lying in bed, usually early in the morning. I first ask the guides if it's okay to do it. Make sure that the person is okay with having it done. And then I just go down deep inside and ask that question, what wants to happen here? And the whole thing is like shown to me what is done to take care of that person. And that can take, I don't know, 40 minutes, an hour, and it's different all the time. And then as soon as I come out of it, I write it down really fast before it flees, and then I type it up as a manuscript. And if you're wondering how a person could remember every tiny little detail, because there are very many tiny details, as a writer, from the beginning of writing, I was always listening for conversations that I overheard, dialogues that I overheard, because I love those, and then I would write them down. So I practiced a lot to be able to remember a thing whole, and then be able to transcribe it afterwards. There's another kind of tantra that I'm interested in teaching. I would call it projector tantra, after the human design system, in which a projector is a certain type of person who is not quite as red hot and earthy as most people. And I've practiced projector tantra for 7.5 years with a partner, and I found great beauty in the sort of the levity of it, the leavened quality. It's kind of lighter, and yeah, so I would be happy to teach that. And then the last thing is something just completely fun and foolish and ridiculous and joyful and ecstatic and wonderful. And it's not a therapy like the other things. It's just something I call wild cards. I love to paint, but not only paint. I love to cut up paper. I love paper, all kinds of paper, handmade paper, wallpaper, beautiful paper bags that you get in Japan when you buy something, and they put it in these amazing bags. I collect these things. Placemats in a restaurant made of paper that are interesting for some reason. Wrapping paper. Tissue paper. Phone book paper. Old poems that weren't quite right and have a correction or two on them. All kinds of paper. Pictures cut out of magazines. So I collect all that stuff. And then sometimes when I have the space, I spread it all out in my session room for a couple of weeks if I am not doing any sessions there. And I put music on or an audio book. I found out that Thomas Hardy is really good for this. He has a kind of right pacing for it. And I love glue. I have big things of glue. And then I also have paints and crayons and magic markers and watercolors and poster paints and fabric paint, which is really good because it's really textured, and glitter and bindis, these Indian thingies that Indian ladies put on their foreheads. They're wonderful for this purpose. And cardboard, cardstock, bits of fabric, all kinds of stuff. And I have some templates for envelopes that I made by just taking apart envelopes of all different sizes. And then I just make cards. And I make like hundreds of them. And I make lots of them all at the same time because I'm wired like that. Other people do, you know, one at a time or 3 or 4 at a time. And they put lots and lots of care into it. The way I do things is not perfect, and I'm not interested in it being perfect. I just love the fun of it. So I call it wild cards because I would like to give people the space to just play, and then sometimes we would get up and dance, or we would do some meditation, and the rest of the time we'd just be playing. So for example, this is an envelope that has different kinds of paper on it, some handmade paper, and then this is a crazy card called Dancer with Leaf Monster, because there's a teeny little monster in there. I cut up old paintings that I made that didn't really work because I love the texture of the paper, the colors, and I kind of recycle them and make new stuff out of them. There's an envelope. There's a painting. I color Xerox my paintings, or sometimes I use originals. You can't see, but there's a kitty cat in there. And then this is wrapping paper. The envelopes, I line them, and I don't, not always, but often, and I don't know if anybody even notices that, but one of the things I love the most about these cards is that, for one thing, it's fine to send them in the post. Most countries, it's totally fine. Nobody bothers if you have a really strange envelope. And then, you know, you put labels on them, and you put the address, and it gets a stamp, and then it gets a cancellation, and then it goes through the post, and by the time it arrives at the person's house, it has achieved a whole personality of its own. It's got a life of its own. You know, it's got depth and richness that an email doesn't exactly have. So here's one. So this is wrapping paper that was a map, and then that's wrapping paper, and then this is some cardstock that actually is from a Rudolf Steiner school that my grandniece and nephew made in the 80s, I think. So it was long ago. They're all grown up now. Maybe it was the 90s. But I loved that stuff. They gave it to me, and I've been cutting it up all these years, and then I learned how to make my own. So there's one of my paintings. It's called Saying Hello from a Past Life, because she's got a sort of Grecian dress on. I'm not going to show you all of these, but let's just... So there's some gorgeous chocolate-colored paper, and that is... well, let's see. I painted the paper myself. Then I started to make a tree, but then I ended up making it into a card that sort of has a tree on the back, but it has a tree on the front, and it says... Oh, because I was illustrating a book. Yeah, that was from that. It was like a rough thing. May your life always be full of trees, it says. because you know I can write anything I want on them, I can glue things on them, I can stick bindies on them. That's a painting. This, I stuck one of my poems on it, because why not? And that poem is about shopping, because why not? Let's see, oh, I'll find a glorious, a big fat glorious one. Ha ha ha. So you can glue lots of bits of paper together to make one thing. And if you send really huge ones, of course it costs more in the post, but it's worth it. Or if you just give it to someone local for birthday or something. So this is a hunting kitty. And on the inside of the cards, oh yeah. So when you open it out, you know, you have more chance to put more colors and stuff in it. And I always put like a piece of paper in there so I can write a message in it. And this has fabric paint on it. You see these bumpy bits along there. So, you know, it's just a way of absolutely going wee and fooling around and playing. And because I don't consider myself any kind of professional as an artist, not at all, then there is no bar to my doing anything I like, even no matter how absurd and strange it is. There's a patchwork envelope. This is from a book that I did called Book of Leaves, in which I painted leaves and each one has a caption. And this one says, "Leaf laughing all over the place." And then it goes in this patchwork envelope, which is lined with an old piece of map wrapping paper. Here's some really weird paper that is like wrapping paper. And there's a dancer with her head thrown back, and that's done on some cardstock that my niece and nephew did, just for the sheer hell of it. All of this is just for the sheer hell of it. I'll just show you the envelope of that because I like it so much. All these colors. The sky is the limit. Oh, here's one of my favorites. So, swirly wrapping paper, and then this is a triptych. So this is actually an original painting, and it's just called Wild Triptych, and that's only going to go to some really incredibly special person on an incredibly special occasion, so I haven't sent it yet. And by the way, what I've discovered is if I make lots and lots of these, and I have no idea for whom they are, eventually the right card for the right person at the right time happens. You know, there's always some reason or other, even if it's something really unlikely, sooner or later the right person will come along. Sometimes people buy them from me. Usually they choose a huge stack and then they're freaked out because they think it costs too much and then they only get 3. But because it does take a lot, you know, it takes time, so I don't want to sell them for nothing. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is it's really fun and you can make your own. And I would love to give people the space to do that in a big, wee, kind of totally fun situation. Okay, so that was a lot of stuff all at once. I'm very happy that I got to share all this because it's like I feel like a jewel box with however rough faceted jewels in it. And those jewels would like to come out and show their faces, and this is a way to do that. So I'm grateful that anybody would listen and watch, because it's a joy and a